Welcome to the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast, your place for truckside chats and insights into the retriever game. Whether you're just getting started or you're a seasoned handler, this podcast is another resource for tips, tricks, and insights from both the amateurs and professional trainers' perspectives. Each week, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty of retriever training, sharing stories of success, overcoming challenges, and forging stronger bonds with our dogs. This is the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. I'm Chris Rudd, your host, fellow retriever enthusiast, and student of the game. Let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of the Hunt Test Hobo Podcast. Hope you're all having a fantastic week. I'm your host, Chris Rudd, and today I'm joined by Jeff Brezee. Sorry, I screwed it up already. Why don't you say it and we'll get it all right? Brezee. See, when we practice ahead of time, and that's
It's a tough one.
Because I was practicing because I was sure it was Breeze, and then I screwed it up. But anyway, we got Jeff on, and Jeff is up in Minnesota, and I'll tell you, all you listeners, why I wanted Jeff to be on is, to me, I mean, Jeff, you're a little older than me, but you've kind of like been like sort of my role model in like an amateur that I kind of want to become. And it's because Jeff has played all the games, and we'll get into that, from NAHRA to SRS. You know, I first ran into him at a regular old finish test and SRS's opens. He judged me in a qual where I bombed miserably. So we got that to, I don't even know if you remember that, but
Was that Madison?
I had a bad day. I
don't remember that, but I remember you talking about, you've only run a couple of.
I ran 3. Yeah. And yours was the first one I did, and we had an implosion on your water blind. She had went to Clark, and when she came back, she would not run for me, like at all. And then she went from the Grand to like 4 days to me running this qual, because he had ran her in some SRS's opens and did fine. So I figured, I'll just go run this. I'm a member of Madison at that point, and I was like, I'll just go run it. And I I knew I was in trouble on the water blind. Like, I don't think Clark had ran a blind past like 150 yards in the water. And yours was like 350 with 3 reentries. And she got to that second like finger you had, and she just imploded. I remember turning around to you and being like, I'm going to try to finish this. And after like 3 casts, I was like, never mind. This is not happening. It was the first time I think it's probably the first and only time I didn't complete a test. It wasn't that hard. Like, it was a reasonable test.
But that's quite common. The problem the theme in field trial water blinds is all of a sudden people think, oh boy, I'm in trouble here.
Yeah. But before we dive too deep into that, I want to thank our partner, Purina, and for all that they're doing in the sporting dog world. If you're looking to try a new food or already using them, I just encourage you to get out there, get some, or just go to any pretty much HRC event. Normally they have some sample bags there that they give out. They do a ton to support all the dog sports around there. So again, thank you to our partner, Purina. All right, Jeff. Why don't you kind of set up kind of your story? For those that are listening, we're going to talk about, all the different events he's done, but we're also going to talk a lot about breeding, because Jeff and his wife, Terri, put together, in my opinion, the best YouTube series for breeding. For me, Labradors. I don't know if you guys have bred anything else, but, and actually I should back up. That's how I first got in contact with you. I wanted to buy out of your breeding that you did, where NAHRA, who I'm sure we're going to talk about a little bit, came from, but the list was full. So that's how I first found out about you, when I saw your breeding. Was it Molly? Is she out of Molly? Yeah. Yep. So that was how I first got, Jeff got on my radar. But then I just kind of watched him on Facebook, and I was like, man, that guy's doing it all. And I was like, I want to do it all. So anyway, Jeff, talk to me about how your journey to doing it all.
Oh boy. Well, if I can start way back in the Stone Ages, in the 70s, my dad was a field trialer. And I remember going to those field trials and, playing in the dirt. And while my dad was off training, and when I got old enough to throw birds, I'd go to some of these informals and I'd be throwing pigeons, and my pay would be, a hamburger at the hamburger joint or at the clubhouse or whatever. Fast forward a couple of years, Carl Ruffalo, a prominent field trialer, he used to pick me up at my house and he'd hire me to throw birds for him during the school week, sometimes on the weekends, and they'd give me $5 and I'd throw birds for his training group, 2-3 times a week, whenever they needed to. Fast forward a little bit more as I got into high school and college. Before college, my dad was kind of out of the game, but I was trying to train dogs and get them ready for hunting season. My dad, that was my job, is to get them prepped for hunting season, take the weight off them, get them, get their endurance going a little bit, swim them. And I met a guy, he used to pick me up because I didn't have my driver's license yet. And we go training and we do the best we could when we were teenagers. And that went well for a little while. I think I ran some NAHRA tests when NAHRA was in its early stages, and kind of peeled out after a year or so, because you get into high school and college, you know how busy you get with sports and girls and all that kind of stuff. So we did that. And then when I got finished with college and got into the medical program that I'm working in today, I met my wife and we had kids, and I was just out of the game, but I always had labs and I'd always trained for hunting and stuff. But when I was at the stage, at one point I was coaching fast pitch 6 nights a week. And when my kids outgrew that or moved on from that and didn't want to do it, I all of a sudden had a lot of free time. Mm-hmm. So one thing I really wanted to get back into was the dog events. So I had a lab and I jumped into that, and I joined a club, and I progressed through that pretty quickly because I kind of knew what I was doing with training. I'd been gone for a long time, but I knew how to force fetch and swim by and all that kind of stuff.
That's a big step in the journey to know those two parts.
Yeah. And I was comfortable with it too, because back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, it wasn't a pleasant thing to do force fetch or, apply pressure to dogs. The dogs have changed so much now, and tactics have changed so much now, where the dogs are softer, they're easier to train. In my opinion, you don't have to use as much force with them. You just apply the right tactics and the right, you have to be consistent, and it's much more easier as long as you know what you're doing. But anyways, I quickly outgrew that club because I was just doing hunt test stuff. And I remember flipping through one of the programs when I was out throwing birds. I'm sure we've all done the same thing. And I started looking at some of the dogs and some of the breedings. And I saw this one dog by a friend of mine, and it had a master MH in the back of it, master hunter. But then in the front of it, it had HRCH. I thought, wow, that dog can do it all. But not only that, he had GMHR in front of it. I had no idea what that was. Come to find out, it was NAHRA. But I'm like, that dog's got 3 titles in 3 different venues. That's what I want. Mm-hmm. I want a dog that can do everything like that. And so that's what I did. I quickly finished out my master title on that dog, and then I jumped right into NAHRA, bombed my first test, but then passed, I think I passed 5 out of 6 of the next batch of tests. And I scoured the internet on YouTube and any resource I could find on how to run NAHRA events. There wasn't much out there, and I didn't know anybody that ran them. Same with HRC. I did the same thing there. Tried to learn online, what to do and how to apply things myself. The club that I was in was a master, hunt test club.
AKC,
Yeah, and a lot of times they don't want to accommodate, let's do an upland hunt or let's do a trail, So I kind of go off by myself and do that stuff. And like I said, I quickly outgrew that club. But then I found the NAHRA club, 4 Points Retriever Club up in central Minnesota. And I got to know those guys pretty well. And I kind of, I would ask those guys on how to do some things. And, basically some of it was trial by error, but that was a club and an organization that I really enjoyed, because that and HRC, to be honest, because when I could take my kids to those club banquets at night and they have raffles and the kids would win costume jewelry or, prints or dog food, all these different kids love that kind of stuff, and who doesn't, you have a dinner and people are sitting around talking and having a beer and, the family's involved and who doesn't like that kind of stuff. So NAHRA became one of my favorites right away, because not only did they throw so much at your dog, but the trail is something that the dogs absolutely love to do. I mean, basically you teach them once and that's their favorite game. And
so can we back up a second? So
yeah,
NAHRA is not popular from what I understand.
No,
but I would love to know more about it and kind of how is it different than, let's just use finished. Most people kind of generally know what a finished test is.
Yeah. Well, NAHRA, usually there's 4 series, and they can start with any of the series. There's never a right order, a proper order to follow, but they'll have a land series, which is a land triple with a blind, and there may be an honor in there. You won't shoot from the line. Sometimes the judges will shoot from the line, not like HRC. You load primed hulls, but you'll use a gun that's welded shut or something, a dummy gun. You'll do a land triple with a blind, and they will incorporate flyers. You'll do a water triple with a blind. You'll do a trail, and that's where a dog has to actually trail a bird that they drug on the ground. It's 100 to 150 yards with a significant bend in it at some point.
That's pretty serious.
It is a lot of fun, and it moves quick. And then the 4th series, and this is always the one that people sweat, is the upland hunt. Okay. And that's where you literally have to trail with your dog and a couple of gunners and a couple of judges, and your dog has to stay in range. And they quickly learn that there's a trap, a box launcher out there. So that's what the dogs are looking for. They're looking for that box launcher. But when that bird goes up, you have to stop your dog, and they have to sit to flush and shot and fall. And then when the judge releases you, you can send your dog to pick that bird up.
So it's like a upland and finished test combined with a trailing in there.
Yes. It's very like an HRC upland hunt, but I think, what do you do, 2 birds in HRC?
Yeah.
Yep. It's generally 1 bird with NAHRA.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, can you use whistle commands to like help them quarter and sand range, or are they forced to? Okay. I didn't know if the dog had to know.
You can say hunt them up. You can give the recall toot to bring them in if they get too far out. You can definitely talk to your dog. You're hunting. You're hunting. And one common theme at these NAHRA tests is, and you'll hear it every single weekend, when you're done with a NAHRA test, you just thought you were hunting with your buddies for the weekend. It's that kind of a test. Everybody wants you to succeed. The laughter's there, the fun's there, the frustration can be there too.
Yeah,
definitely.
Very cool. Okay, so I wanted to pause there and just kind of, because a lot of people don't know what NAHRA is, and I wanted to kind of get that kind of set up for the listeners.
NAHRA is popular. So we have 1 club in Minnesota. There's 2 or 3 clubs in Iowa, and then you have your East Coast and your West Coast. Okay. Basically have some NAHRA tests. There's not a lot. It's not like HRC or AKC, but they are very loyal. They have a NAHRA Invitational in June. It's their national event, kind of like the Grand or the Master National. And that's a lot of fun too.
Yeah. Are you still doing that NAHRA stuff?
I took a break, about a 4 or 5 year break to pursue the field trials. And Jasmine, she never failed an NAHRA test. When I was running her, she went, I think she needs 1 more pass for the 500 point club.
Okay.
She did finally fail one this last summer because I just let her get away from me a little bit. She's getting older, and I'm pretty lenient with her now. But my wife wanted to try NAHRA this year, so we jumped back into it.
Okay.
We ran six events this last summer.
Wow.
2024.
With NAHRA, is that who she was running?
She ran NAHRA, and I ran Poppet. Poppet had her master title in NAHRA, but I can pursue her Grandmaster Hunter title, which is 15 passes.
Okay.
So Poppet's not like your mom where she's real compliant when it comes to steady to flush and shot. She's got a motor more like your daddy, you know, the national field champion. And she's a little harder to control. She's got that super turbocharger under the hood. But Nala is a lot like Jasmine, where she's very compliant. She handles like a dream. She's an incredible marker, and you hit that sit whistle, and boy, she's got her butt planted.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah. All right, so you started to run NAHRA, and we kind of jumped. We jumped all over the place. So you did. You know, I'm just trying to get your life story unpacked here a bit.
Okay, I got the NAHRA. We jumped into NAHRA after the master passes. We got our master title in NAHRA. And then we pursued HRC, and we got our finished title with that. This is my dog Bear that we started with him about 14 years ago, and once he got all three of those titles, and then he got his Grandmaster Hunter in NAHRA, because I kept pursuing that when I started bringing Jasmine up. But I guess the significant change in my hunt test career was when I got Jasmine. I wanted a female that I wanted to breed. My dad used to breed Labradors when I was a kid, and I remember helping with those litters, and it was something I enjoyed, something I wanted my family to do, but I wanted to do it right. I wanted to get the titles on my dog, the health clearances on my dog. I wanted to do everything right because I wanted to market dogs that were sought after. Yeah. So when I made the move with Jasmine, she's what, you know, I learned a lot with Bear getting back into it. In Jasmine, I was like easy street because I had a really good dog. She was well bred. She was compliant. She was a good marking dog. She was, and still is, she was just a dream dog. I sailed through my master title, my HRCH title, my Grandmaster in NAHRA, her upland title in NAHRA, her upland title in HRC. And I think that's when we had our first litter. And then we tried SRS.
And the SRS is where, I'm sure you've had other claims to fame, but I remember watching you on TV.
Oh yeah.
When Jasmine and you got second in the Crown, right? It was second?
Yes.
That's a pretty big deal.
Well, here's the thing with NAHRA, or with SRS. At the time we ran our first SRS, they had been gone from the north. I live in Minnesota. The first one was in Wisconsin, over in Mondovi at Black Hawk Retriever Grounds. I'm a member there, but a gentleman brought that club up, or brought the SRS to that venue for an event, and I ran it, and we got fourth place. And I think a local guy got first. Well, I know a local guy did, but then some people from the south that travel and follow the SRS, they got the other placements. But I was really happy to get fourth place. And, you know, the entry fees are significantly higher than actually, they're not significantly higher than a hunt test. But I thought, boy, this is a lot of fun. So I entered the next one they had in Red Wing. It was a classic, SRS Classic. And I was feeling pretty good about running this one now. So I got one under my belt. So I'm going to try another one. We ran the first day, and I think it was a triple with a blind. And we had one bad bird where we just racked up a ton of points. I mean, two birds were really good. My blind was really nice. But one of the birds, I just racked up points. And one of the judges I knew came up to me later and says, boy, Jeff, you kind of had a lot of whistles and a lot of points in that series. And I didn't say much. I just kind of tucked tail and went back to my
Like,
truck.
I'm out of here.
I think we were done for the day, and I remember calling my wife, and I said, I don't know, Terry, I don't know if I want to run SRS. I don't know if this is for me. And I remember her saying this. She said, Jeff, she said, let's go out to, the local place we always used to go out, for dinner. And she said, let's go have a burger and a beer, and we'll talk about it. And I'll go with you this weekend, and we'll finish this out. We'll have fun doing it. I said,
so
okay.
Is this your first competitive dog thing at this point? Had you ran any derbies or quals or anything like that yet?
I think I had run a couple of quals.
Okay.
She wasn't qualified all age yet.
Yeah. So you had tasted defeat in that sense. Like, that was a big eye opener to me. It was just like, holy cow, this is competition. This is no longer pass fail.
Yep. I'm not in the running anymore, because I think when a person wants to do that breakthrough and go into field trials, I think there comes a stage in your hunt test career where you're comparing yourselves, you and your dog, your team, to other teams. And that's what I used to do. I'm like, well, we didn't have to blow any whistles this weekend, on any of the marks. She marked them all, or she went straight to the fall, or I bet we were in the top 5 or, top 4, or, and then that's when you kind of start to think, maybe I want to try qualifying. But so we went to the SRS. We ran a couple of qualifyings. The first one, I won't get into that, but the first one we blew up. I think we picked up one bird. But so anyways, this SRS, we went and we had a burger and beer that night. We went back for the weekend. It was Friday was the first day, and then Saturday was the second day. And my wife was off, and she went with me. Jasmine and I ended up winning that classic. We bombed that bird, the day before. And then the next weekend, things just fell into place, and we were able to come back and win it. And I was on.
Was it the same trial or the next weekend?
It was the first one we got 4th. The first.
The one that she struggled in that series, was she out? Because they allow you to run 2 series. Oh, so that was the one that she won.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So the first series we could run. The second series we could run. Well, we made it to the 3rd and the 4th, and we ended up winning it.
That's the one thing about SRS that people don't realize. It's like, just get to the 6th, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
In the 6th.
Yeah. And I think in that one, I had never thrown more than a triple for my dog, but in that event, I think they threw 5 in the Hunt Savvy.
Yeah.
And she marked them all.
Yeah.
She marked them all better than I did. It was, Well, that qualified us for the Crown.
Yeah.
And then we decided, hey, let's do it. So we went down to Huntsville, Alabama, where they rolled the red carpet out for us. I mean, the SRS, they really roll it out for their members, and the people that are going to run there. I think the city of Huntsville, they brought in like breakfast every morning and lunch every morning, and the SRS had dinners for us. And I mean, it was so much fun, and the people were incredible. But yeah, we did pretty good at the Crown too. Here we are, it's a Yankee from the north coming down into interrupting their events down there.
Yeah, the crawfish boil that they got going on. Or whatever,
we came down there, and we did well. We did really well. We ended up making it to the finals, and it was me, Mike Gibson, and Ron Anderson for the amateurs, and it was Lyle and Clark for the pros. And we went into the last series, and Jasmine put up the best score out of everybody. But it wasn't enough to win it. We missed out on first place by, I think, 8 points.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been reliving that for years of how if I would have blown one less whistle or lined her up a little bit, I could have had a Crown champion on my hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's cool. I think that's when Clark run with Roscoe, right? When he had the yellow lab.
Yeah.
I've been giving him a hard time ever since then. I said, well, you won with the yellow lab once.
Yeah.
You need more yellow labs.
Yep.
And he's got one now, so we'll see what happens. But anyhow, very cool. Yeah, I remember watching that, because that was like the first time, like, I don't remember if that's the first time they live streamed it, where you could watch like every series live streamed.
Yeah.
It was at some point during that time frame And I remember like I was sitting at work and I had multiple computers just from, the company had multiple laptops laying around that from people that maybe were transitioning or whatever. So I set one up in my office, just that computer, and the Crown just ran the whole like 24/7. Like I was there.
Yeah.
I don't do that quite as much anymore because I would just find myself just staring at it, not getting anything done. But it's like March Madness for me. Like during March Madness, our office used to that's all we would do is just put all the games up. So that was like, I'm like, don't bother me right now unless you really need me because I'm listening to the Crown. And so I remember following because I had a puppy of a friend's that I was training out of Mason, and Mason was doing really well, so I wanted to see how Mason was doing, and I knew of Stroker, and I was trying to watch all these dogs that were like.
It's fun when you can follow certain dogs,
Yeah. So I love that. But I vividly remember it was like a big snow goose series, right at the end.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember.
It was like a combo hunt test field trial.
There's something like you guys had to walk from somewhere, right? Like you picked up some bags. We had to walk
from the holding blind up to the line. And I think you had to sit your dog. No, you had to put him in a mutt hut.
That's what it was, yeah.
Yep. And then you had to go behind the mutt hut in a holding blind with another guy. And they would call, and the dog, just what's going on. There's everything out in front of them. And somebody way off about 400 yards shot and threw a snow goose. Or,
a white flasher. Yeah.
A white flasher. And then you had to come out of the holding blind, walk over about 25 yards off to the left and pick up a bag of decoys. Well, you didn't actually pick it up, but you had to walk over there. And your dog's,
trying to figure out what's going on.
High alert, what's going on. And then you had to basically give your dog an over to send him on a blind that was 250 yards up through another set of decoys off to the side.
Mm.
So she did really good on that because we practice that all the time. I have a memory blind that's 200 yards long right outside the side of my property here. And I'll always start one with a dead bird back, and then I'll do one where I have them sit and I'll give them an over.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll go the other side and I'll give them an over the other way. And then I'll come behind them and I'll give them a back. I'll start them 3 different ways.
Yeah.
And so she did really good on that blind. And then all of a sudden you pick up that bird, then you come back, and then all of a sudden they shot 1, 2, 3 or 4 more birds. 2 of them are right in the decoys, wipeout birds. And well, she had those picked up right away because she's, we've been to Canada snow goose hunting, and Jasmine's the kind of dog she would, if the other dogs were staked out, and if we knocked 5 or 6 birds down, before I know it, she's got 3 or 4 of them before the other dogs are even untied. She can mark birds, and she's like a bird hog.
Yeah.
But she got those 2 right away, and then she did really good on the long left bird. That's where the other dogs had trouble.
Yeah.
And then that long punch bird from the very beginning of the series that we interrupted with the blind,
mm-hmm.
She did really. I think I had to put 2 whistles on her to get her up to that bird.
Yeah.
She did a really good job on that.
Nice. Yeah. Well, if you win the series, you're normally in really good shape. So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's it's always fun to go back down kind of memory lane there.
Yeah.
So you don't run. I haven't seen you running many SRSs. Is that just because of location?
I'll tell you why. A couple years, the next year we ran, Iowa had one, and we went down, and I think we got 2nd or 3rd there. So we were qualified for that was 2018. We ran the Crown. Mm-hmm. We qualified for 2019 just by being a finalist.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went down to Iowa and re-qualified again, for a second time. But I think we got 3rd place. So I re-qualified again, and I might have run 1 or 2 more in Minnesota. And we went down to the Crown again, and I think I walked away I think we didn't make the finals that year. So in 2018, it was in the 40s or 50s. It was cold, in Huntsville when we went. When we went in 2019, it was pushing 90 degrees. It was a whole different thing, and we just didn't have our game like the year before. And I think we just missed the finals.
Mm-hmm.
And then the year after that, there were very few SRSs in the north. and I wasn't going to travel way down south to go and to enter those. I was waiting for them to come up to me, and most of them were getting canceled because the pros weren't making it up.
Yeah.
Or I think they had a rule change that so many amateurs and so many pros had to be in there too, and we just weren't getting those numbers in the north, and so they'd cancel an event, and I'd miss out on running a NAHRA test or a field trial because the deadline had passed.
Mm-hmm.
And the SRS had closed, and I couldn't make the other events. So after that happening for about 2 years, I thought, I'm just going to focus on field trials or other things. But in the last couple of years, they've done a better job about holding those events up here. I know Leonard's had one over in Wisconsin for the last couple of years. Unfortunately, it's one of my club's field trial weekends.
Yeah.
And then Paul's done a pretty good job. He's gotten one up in the St. Cloud area.
Mm-hmm.
And then Curtis Lindsay, I think he's got one that like a midweek after that. And
yeah, they do 2 up there. I was going to try to make that happen this year, but with her being bred, that's not happening at this point.
Yeah.
But
well, my wife, she's the one that keeps throwing ideas at me, and she said, wouldn't that be kind of fun if we both qualified for the Crown? And we were driving, and I looked at her, and she just gave me permission to run an SRS. I'm like,
well, see, the thing that the listeners maybe don't know is that you've done the greatest thing in your career, which is get your dog or get your wife to have a dog of her own. And
let me tell that story too. So we may throw our hat back in the SRS.
Yeah, very cool.
We'll see about that, but yeah, that's probably the greatest thing I've done is with my wife. Can I tell that story?
Yeah, let's do it.
So we were on our second litter of labs with Molly and Jasmine, and Molly's yellow factored, Jasmine's yellow factored. We were hoping to have yellow puppies just because, they're marketable, and we didn't have any of the first litter. The second litter, we only had one yellow puppy, and it was a female. And when it came out, we were like in shock, and I looked at it, and I looked at Terri, and I said, what if we kept another puppy? We already had 3 at the time. She's like, and have 4 dogs. And I said, what if I make you a deal? What if we keep the yellow female if you run her? And she thought about that for about 2 seconds. She said, deal. So my greatest accomplishment, I've got a lot of great accomplishments in my mind with my dogs, but my greatest accomplishment is mentoring my wife we started off with white coat training her for derbies. She quickly got qualified for the Derby National. We ran the Derby National, and she went 8 series. Now, mind you, she asked me if I should run Nala in the Derby National. And I said, oh, no, you got her here. You're running her. Mm-hmm. So we had a blast down at the Derby National, and she went 8 series. The 8th series that we went out on was really tight, almost inline double through the water and bridge birds. And I don't know how these Derby dogs can do stuff like that, but they can. It's amazing. But I was very proud of them.
And if you guys want to, those are the run that she qualified for the Derby National and some of the Derby National run. Well, maybe not the Derby Nationals, but some of the I know I've seen videos on your guys' YouTube channel of her running derbies. Of Nala.
Yeah. Yeah. The one that we have on our YouTube channel, she got second place.
Yeah. That was
her first derby. There was like 32 dogs in the derby.
Wow.
And you're running against pros too. Mm-hmm. And so she got second place there. And it was Brad Knight was judging, and he says, that qualifies you for the Derby National. Are you going? And John Lynch looks over us and he says, yeah, you going? And I'm like, Derby National? What's the Derby National? So then we got to talking about it, and I said, well, Terri says, we should go. We went to the Crown, we should go to the Derby National. I said, let's just run one more to make sure it wasn't a fluke. So we went up to Hennepin County, or maybe it was MFTA or something like that. We ran another derby against some really good dogs, and she got a jam.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, well, what do you think? Should we still try this? And I said, let's run one more. So, we don't want to get into bad habits running the derbies and getting head swinging and creeping and stuff. And so we ran one more at Chippewa Valley, and she got third place. I said, okay, we're going. Go to the Derby National. So I talked to Wayne Curtis a little bit. I said, what kind of things we need to watch out for? What do we need to work on? And he told me, throw some hen pheasants, start throwing hen pheasants and throw them into places where dogs don't want to go. Instead of throwing it, at the end of the field, throw it in the trees at the end of the field, or, somewhere really tough. And so that we did. And yeah, she did great down there. She did really good. Probably the hen pheasant series was her best one.
Yeah. Do you guys I'm assuming you do a bunch of upland hunting being where you are located?
Not so much in Minnesota.
Okay.
But I do make trips to Canada or northern Minnesota or the Dakotas.
Yeah.
We do a lot of upland hunting.
I feel like I've seen you on Facebook posting pictures of you guys upland hunting.
Yep. We do a lot of combo trips up there. And yeah, it's getting tougher up there because, land is hard to get access to these days, especially even in North Dakota, it's getting tougher and tougher. There's electronic postings and it's hard. So, but we make the best of it, and we usually go up for a week or two, and we do well, but it takes it's a work. It's a week of work, a lot of work.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yep. And you got to take dogs. You got to bring lots of dogs because
they get exhausted
up there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, very, very cool. So you've been, you, like we talked about at the beginning, you've judged field trials, and now you're running more AMs and opens from what I've seen.
Yeah, more amateurs. I'm pretty diligent about my time off. So I want my time off in the fall, and I've got other, things I do throughout the year I need time off for, so I don't take quite as many Fridays off to run opens.
Mm-hmm.
I try to run amateurs. Last year I didn't run quite as many because, we've got parents that need help with some stuff, and, I had to rebuild my deck, and I've got a house I might have to reside next year. There's stuff that I do, and I do it all myself. So
yeah.
I got to step away from it once in a while to take care of life, and but we do the best we can. Yeah, we ran a few amateurs last year. Poppet, I think I took Poppet and Nala to the third series in 3 trials. It's either last year or the year before. No, it was the year before. Last year I didn't get to run too much, but Poppet did. She did finish an amateur, and then this year we've ran 3 now, and we finished 1. So. Yeah. And it's early. We haven't been in the water hardly at all this year.
Yeah, that's got to be. I know it's hard down here in northern Illinois, but to be where you are, man, that's just got to be. That's got to be really
still
tough.
Cold.
Yeah,
yeah. We ran. I was throwing in the amateur at Blackhawk this last weekend, and it was cold out. We're 400 yards away on the top of a hillside, and the wind's blowing in your face, and my eyes are watering trying to watch the guy hold up the red paddle.
It's time to
shoot the bird.
Through the bird.
And it was. I just want to come home and start a fire in a fireplace. Yeah, but the dogs, even in the third series with the water blind, they didn't want to get back in the water. And that third, fourth, fifth re-entry in the water, they don't. FCAFC dogs, they did not want to get back in the water. It's cold.
Yeah, they're like, I'm done. This is good. I know it's a dead bird over there somewhere, but
yeah. Well, we'll be more appreciative of come August.
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody's going to come up and visit you when it gets later in the year. Do you guys have a bunch of people that winter up there or summer up there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think Minnesota and Wisconsin have got to be probably 2 of the toughest states to run amateur stakes in. There's an open stakes because all the pros are up here and tons of amateurs, and there's a lot of opportunities, but there's a lot of tough competition.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Most of these dogs been in the water all winter long.
Yep. They're down in Texas or Georgia or something.
Yep.
And
Texas and Georgia.
Kicking our butts, and they come back. Yeah. We've been here waiting for you. Now you're here killing us.
We should try.
Yeah. Sharon, I've been training at Sharon Gehrman's place and here in Morris, and she's got a place in Texas. And I'm like, thinking I might drive my camper down there and leave it, and then just drive down for a couple, because I can work remote, but it's
Yeah.
more about the family situation,
I
But
tell
I'd
you what,
love-
if I could snowbird down in Texas or Georgia, that'd be the ticket.
that's
Summer up here, winter down there.
yeah. I mean, especially with because that heat, even here in Illinois, that heat can mean something pretty serious still.
Yeah.
But there is just something to get a little further north, like up into, my parents have property in Saint Germain, and then we have a place in the UP, and just that difference, it can be almost 10 degrees difference, depending on, it can still be 100, but
Yeah.
the average is much lower.
Yeah. Well, my sister-in-law lives in northern Minnesota, and their winter is typically 1 to 2 months longer than ours in southern Minnesota.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. Well, let's talk about breeding, because, you started to hint at that, but I think I told you, or I said it at the beginning of the podcast, I can't remember, but I think you guys have like the best YouTube series for whelping puppies. When we decided we were going to breed Winter, I had already watched your whole series, and I showed it to my wife, and we went and we watched one video a night, and then made a list, and then ordered all the stuff. And
That's good to hear.
it was probably I don't know if my wife will ever run dogs, but it's been one of my favorite things in the dog game has been the whole family aspect of breeding. Like, my wife absolutely loves it. And the first time, there were definitely times of cleaning up that I was like, this is not worth it. I don't care how much money there is at the end of the table. This is not worth it. But doing the second litter and having a plan based off that first litter was like, oh my goodness, it was so much better. But like, I can't even imagine what it would have been like to not watch your guys' videos first, even though I screwed up some things and didn't do it right, and watched it later. I'm like, oh, that's why they did that, because I didn't quite understand the context when I watched it first. But man, I was like, wow, this is like, I had confidence going into it. So how'd you get into I know you said you bought Jasmine to breed, but like, how'd that whole process go and eventually making the YouTube series?
Well, I have a lot of experience with when I was younger with my dad having litters too. So I remember going through that a little bit. And so I had some stuff in the back of my mind about how we were going to do it this time. But the reason the Retriever Nation, YouTube video came up, or series came up, is because so many people that my wife knew and we knew wanted to know what was going on with the puppies and the whole process of the thing. That's why we started making those videos. And so then from there, it kind of morphed into more how to do things, how to run tests, all these different things. What was the original question?
I just love to talk about the breeding. Like, why'd you get into breeding, and how did it become a family affair, and all that?
I remember my dad had a really nice dog, and he bred to a field champion. And that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a dog that had all the titles, and Jasmine had all the titles. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a dog that could run in so many venues and have the titles. I mean, granted, we didn't go to the Grand, we didn't go to Master National, but still to have all the different titles, and then to breed to a national amateur field champion, which Molly is what we did. We wanted to have a dog that could sell. And I remember my dad always telling me, you want half your puppies sold before they're even born. And I think they were pretty much all sold before they were born. Yeah. And you want a marketable dog, and you want a dog that's got all its health clearances, meaning good or excellent hips, normal elbows, EIC clear, CNM clear, all that kind of stuff. And I'm a big advocate on nothing clear by parentage. Actually, do the testing.
Do the DNA testing.
Do the testing, because I mean, if you're going to put that kind of money and effort into a litter, make sure you're selling dogs that are going to be genetically clear of everything. And if there are any issues, if it is EIC carrier or ERA carrier, make sure you're breeding to a dog that's clear on all that, so that you don't produce a dog that is affected.
Yep. And that's something like Winter is a carrier of EIC. So making sure like everybody that we breed to is like, that's my first question when I was prospecting for like who we're going to breed to. I was like, EIC clear? They said, yeah.
Yeah.
They always look at me like, yeah. I'm like, well, she's a carrier, so we got to make sure it's clear, you know?
Yeah.
And like,
and Jasmine was a PRA carrier.
mm-hmm.
And it's kind of funny. There's a lot of dogs out there that aren't tested for PRA, or they're not, clear on up to date on all their surfs, on all their eye exams too. So we had to make sure that we were extra careful on who we bred to as far as that went too. And even up front, when somebody called about the litter, it's one of the first things I said. No, Brett, Jasmine's a PRA carrier. She's not affected by PRA. She'll never get it. But I just want you to know that the puppy could be a carrier, but it will never be affected.
Yep.
So, yeah. And actually, Poppet is a PRA carrier too. That's why I never bred her, because I just didn't want to. I didn't want to produce another puppy that might be a carrier or anything. Poppet's a phenomenal dog. She's got 4 titles in 4 different venues too, but I just didn't want to go there. Nala was going to be my breeder because she was clear of everything.
Yeah. Have you done any litters with Nala yet?
No, we bred her this spring to NAFC Croc, and her numbers were perfect. We went to the vet. Everything was timed just right, but it didn't take.
Was it a surgical or was it a
surgical? Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty uncommon for a surgical not to take.
Yes.
And sure that wasn't a good day for you.
No, it wasn't. It was very heart-wrenching, but that comes with the territory when you're a breeder.
Yeah.
There's different things you can. I mean, if you lose a puppy or if you lose a litter or the litter doesn't take, it can be tough.
Yeah.
It can be tough on a person.
Yeah, we breeding is not all roses. I mean, that's for sure. Like the first time we tried to breed Stroker, we couldn't get a natural tie. I went and tried to do a side-by-side. I paid $800, $900 or whatever it was for like the emergency side-by-side.
Yep.
And that didn't take. And, that was a pretty lame feeling. And then, luckily, we did a surgical next time, and that was great. We had 10 puppies. It was all good, but day 4, Winter slept on one. So having to explain that to the kids, and it was a black female that I think like there was only 2 black females in that litter, and we wanted to keep a black female. But a good friend of mine was going to take the other black female. Mm-hmm. So I had to make a decision. Do I give her a dog or do I keep one? And now that had happened, and so
it's tough.
That was hard. And then the last breeding we had was 5 puppies. The last puppy was stuck. Waited 3 hours for that puppy to come. It wasn't coming. Had to do an emergency C-section. That was fun. Laying on it was at night, and it was, I think, total with that surgery and all the other stuff, it was like $2,500 by the time I was done with the emergency C-section and the emergency visit, and to have 5 puppies. But God darn it, I kept the one that was stuck, and that one's mine. Because I already paid for you twice. We're keeping you.
You earn that money back.
Yeah, you were going to earn that money back. But I think she's great. She's young, but I really like her. I think she's gonna be good. She's 8 months old. Or sorry, I think she must be 7 months old now. Mm-hmm. But she's in the T doing really good, and I'm really excited for her. But anyway, we're going to talk about all these great things that we love about breeding, and I just wanted to be like, yo, there is some not so great things about breeding.
Well, if anybody tells you they're out to make money on breedings, it's not the way it is.
Especially if you're not training the dog yourself. I can't imagine people that send their dog to other people to be trained, pay all that expense, and then expect to make anything. Like, it's just, that's not a model that's going to work.
Now, do you send your puppies to a pro?
No, I do typically send them 1 to 2 months with a pro, only during hunting season. And I think it's good for them to do some sort of very formal training with another human being that's not me. Because I think that's a thing that they need to learn, that anybody can run you. Now, that hasn't played out very good with Winter, but my other dogs, that has been fine. Yeah. Winter's kind of a one-man operation. But some dogs are like that. I mean, she passed a finish test or 2 finish tests with Dan, when I was going to be gone, and he had her for 1 week and then ran her in a finish test. But he said like she missed one mark and he started to handle her and he was like, the wheels were about to come off. But he made it through. But I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But mostly I do everything myself. I tried to send Winter to Clark one winter just because like I hunt a lot, and it was fine. I mean, I don't think that I'll do it again. I just personally like to do it all myself.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
But I do think it's important for somebody else to handle the dog. So I try to, during hunting season, like the first month and a half of hunting season, if it's a new dog, a new puppy, you know, wherever they're at, hopefully like in force fetch or something.
Well, now you need to get your wife involved so she can run dogs.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen.
That's my excuse. I'll go out after work and I'll be throwing birds while my wife runs all the dogs, and she keeps getting line time then.
That's great. Yeah, that's good. Well, I actually just had, so my youngest, she's 10. She ran a starter test with one of my dogs, and it was a great experience. She learned a lot. The big limit, there's 2 limitations for her moving to the next level, is she can't blow a whistle hard enough yet. She doesn't understand the really, you know, use the diaphragm. And the other thing is like I don't run hardly any AKC hunt tests. If I'm going to run AKC, I'm normally running a trial or something. So I'd have to go to a senior test for her to run a gun because she doesn't have hunter safety, and she uses no way she could operate a full size 12.
That was at an HRC test?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the hardest part. After the Derby, my wife went into HRC and we started with seasoned. And that was the hardest part because she had never loaded a gun, never shucked a gun, never blown a duck call. And she had to learn there's a lot going on at the line with HRC seasoned.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a walking test and it's a handler's test at that point. Like you got to learn to walk with all the dogs and all that operation, and the gun is just, there's so much movement that's going on. That would be really hard for somebody who hasn't operated a gun or a duck call. So, but
especially a kid.
My point to that is I've started to bring her, and I'm throwing and she's running the dogs. But the problem is they bring me the birds back sometimes. And then they're like, what are you talking about? You're out here. Cause I throw a lot of birds by myself from a place board. So I'm like, I'm trying to figure out like, what do I do? And she's yelling, here. And she doesn't have a collar. And I'm just like, I don't know what I should do here. So we're going to practice. I'm like, yeah, she can't blow a whistle. So like, we're going to practice a little bit, like with me closer to the dog or to her, so that the dog's like, it's clear where but man, just doing that one night, I was like, I could get used to this.
So when your daughter was running, I'm going to ask you this question because my daughter ran Jasmine through the junior level.
Okay.
Not for Jasmine, but for Joe, my youngest daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Were you more nervous than what your daughter seemed to be?
Yeah, my daughter sat down and put her leg up and crossed her leg and was like, deet, 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 deet. But the problem was is that it started, the guns are like super spread out, and she forgot which gun it was, so she was pointing, like she sat and was pointing at the other gun. And Rex, who's huge, I mean he's like 85 pounds, he like put his head on her lap to look across her. Like, I heard the winger, it's over there, girl. Yep. But then she did really good. It was fun.
Yeah, I remember pacing in the gallery while my daughter was up flawlessly running Jasmine through the junior test. You know, they're only singles, but still.
Yeah. It's nerve-wracking for sure.
She'd look back at the judges and she'd signal for the bird and she'd send them, and yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So you guys you did the whole breeding. You guys are doing the breeding stuff. You're going to breed NAHRA. Who are you going to do it to? You said you did Croc last time. Is that who you're going to do it again to? Try again?
I think this next time we're really gonna. So my wife's got some theories on, you were talking about how did you say how your wife really took to the breeding aspect?
Yeah.
That's kind of where my wife took the driver's seat. I found the stud. I did all the research, the testing, putting the titles on the dogs, everything. But when it came to the whelping box, and Terri was all charts, keeping track of things, making sure everything was lined up to a T. And she had her little, prenatal drops in case the dogs needed some syrup, simple syrup to get them, nursing, and I mean, she's a healthcare worker, true and true. And
Yeah.
That's where she really shined. And with NAHRA, we did the surgical breeding last time. I think we're going to try either. My point with Terri is she's done more research on maybe her numbers were a little too high before we did the surgery. Maybe NAHRA's cervix was closed beforehand. We don't know. Dogs can be different. Just like people can be different. But we're thinking natural next time. So I'm researching a couple of dogs that
you could get to, because being where you are, if it's the right time of year, you're going to be in great shape. But if it's the wrong time of year,
well, it's going to be the beginning of October. So or probably the middle to third week of October, which is perfect timing in my mind, because I'm going to keep one of those puppies, and I want to try doing the whole Derby National thing again. And I just love starting dogs. I love starting them. I love taking them up through basics and transition, and watching their minds absorb like a sponge is what I love doing in teaching these dogs. But I think we're going to go natural next time. So, we've got another national going on this year. We'll see what comes of that. There's also some FCAFC dogs I've got my eye on that, I know that I'm acquaintances with the owners. So I'll probably reach out to them when the time comes. And I really want a pup out of NAHRA though, because she's a good marking dog. She's a compliant dog, and she's smart. And boy, when we're out hunting, she puts the birds up too.
Nice.
Yeah, she's a good dog.
So you were saying that Terri's working on a book?
Yes. So with those YouTube videos you watched, and we've got tons of comments on those videos on Terri referred to her notes quite often in her books or in her videos. And a lot of people.
I'm bummed I didn't leave any. Darn it.
Yeah. A lot of those people commented if she had those notes or would sell them to people, or could offer them up or something, and she really didn't know what to do. So after a couple of years of contemplating, and she decided to make a book. So she has put together a book-a-zine, what it's like a magazine, but a book with high quality images in it and charts, and it's called The Ultimate Guide to Whelping Puppies. It's about 120 pages, and she's got over 80 resources. And she's got everything in there from fading puppy syndrome to when your expected mother is, getting close, how to take the temperatures to make sure you're honing in on the right times, and, how to make sure the right food for your puppies, when it comes time to wean them, and everything from delivery to ENS to ESI to sound desensitizing to neonates, everything that you can think of. It's a very comprehensive book that she's going to, it's probably going to go to print here in the next month or so and be available for purchase probably mid-July. And along with that book, she's got an accompanying book has all the charts in it for when you're weighing puppies, when they're born, to the milestones, the first day, the second day, the third day, the next week, making sure that all their tracking is on, where they should be. You can check the different graphs on when you're doing your ENS or your ESI. And it's just, it's an excellent resource to have. And I think she's getting some advertisers together now that they're going to help with the printing process. And
very cool. Well, when she publishes it, let's make sure we get her on the podcast, because I'd love to read it, highlight some stuff, and be like, so let's talk about this, and then get a good podcast for a bunch of retriever people who I know a lot of them want to breed or have done breedings.
She would love that. And it's not just for labs. It's for basically all puppies. We don't go into certain things like cropping ears or docking tails, or, different dogs have different requirements, but for pretty much all litters, it's going to work for everybody.
Yeah.
She's worked very hard on this for about 2 years.
Yeah. I'm excited. I Seriously, if you all are listening and you want to watch a YouTube series about whelping and feel confident in what you're doing, it's Retriever Nation. And then they have a whole, and I meant to say this at the beginning. You guys did a great service to just all the games, and you guys created just basically video walkthroughs of here's what a season test is. Here's what you guys did a NAHRA one that I believe I watched. You guys did the Derby stuff. You guys did a qual, if I remember right.
Yep. And the funny thing is when we took the one video of a qual, Pop had happened to win it.
Yeah.
And then when we did the one Derby, that's when Terri got second. It's like, maybe we should do one of the amateur stake.
A little bit of humility out there, right?
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, Jeff, I appreciate you and Terri putting those videos out there, as well as doing all the judging that you're doing for the community, the retriever community. Judging is an important part of it. So
it's important to give back.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. So thank you for that. And thanks for being on the Hunt Test Hobo podcast. It's been an enjoyable conversation, and I want to thank our partner Purina for all that they're doing in the sport and for helping this podcast, quote unquote, stay on the air. So thanks again, Jeff.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.